What a final. What a tournament. What a final. We are here as the Too Many Guys Soccer Show to look back at the last 29 days and relive the greatness that was the World Cup, but most especially to talk about what I gotta believe, in my humble opinion, was probably the best final that I've ever seen, full stop, in soccer. I'm Mike, and this is the Too Many Guys Soccer Show, the worst 120 or so minutes in all of sports podcasting. I am joined, as I am most podcasts, and welcome back after a week hiatus to go down to Atlanta, Georgia. Producer Stead. Stead, how goes it, my friend?
It's going great. Going great. Yeah, that was a great final. I really was on the edge of my seat watching it. I will die on this soapbox. We'll talk about this more later, but I will die on this soapbox. I hate shootouts to end tournaments. I just hate it. And there's nothing that's going to change my mind. We'll touch on that more later, but that's my hand grenade to start my podcast here. Start the podcast is I hate them.
Yeah, I'm sure that we will get into the virtues of shootouts to end tournaments. And the shootout felt both climactic, it was drama-filled, but anticlimactic given the nature of the game. And we can discuss how that went. But yeah. And we got our good friend coming live from New Orleans, Louisiana. Coach G, how goes it?
Oh, it's going well, man. It's I kind of agree with Stead. I hate this PK stuff, and I'm a goalie myself, but definitely good to see that great end of a World Cup. Yeah, I'm kind of itching right now, but I only have 3 more days until Thursday, and then soccer's right back. But I'm kind of missing maybe some biting, maybe some head butting, some kind of big thing in this finals, and we didn't really see that. But a lot of PKs this tournament, a lot of PKs in the final game. Besides the final, but it was a great tournament. Definitely we'll talk about a lot of different avenues about this.
So let's start with where it ended. Messi gets his. Whether this is the last game that we see him in an Argentina jersey, he has seemed to indicate that it will not be. We know that there will be at least one Copa America coming up, most especially likely this summer. There is a possibility of another Copa America Centenario type deal, which will incorporate some of the CONCACAF nations that's been discussed again, possibly to be hosted here in 2024, opposite the Euros leading up to the World Cup in 2026, when we doubt that we will see Lionel Messi defend this World Cup, but he got his. He has put his name officially alongside of Diego Maradona, alongside of Pelé, on that Mount Rushmore of soccer. We can argue whether or not he's the greatest of all time. We can argue whether he's even the best Argentinian player of all time. I might tend to give him the benefit of doubt, just sheer longevity and production over Diego Maradona, but that's just me. It had to be Messi. He got the first. He got Argentina's third. He converted the penalty. He wins the Golden Ball as player of the tournament, fittingly so. Etches his name in the pantheon of the greats of all time, not only just in soccer, but in sport, period. On the flip side, you got to feel for young Kylian Mbappe. There's not much more that young man could have done. How many times are you going to score a hat trick in a final, take home the golden ball, and still golden boot, I'm sorry, and still be on the losing end of this?
And take a picture with the 3 other trophy winners. Like, I don't want to be here. Like, great shot, by the way. But
no, but I would say this about Mbappe. Mbappe is having before I say what I'm going to say, I'm going to just say this. I'm so glad Fox broadcast is over because I don't think I win a single game without hearing this person's name that I'm about to say. But because it was a broadcast in America, they can't go a game without saying Pele. And so, of course, I heard his name counted 4 times during the final on the broadcast. So, but I will say this, Mbappe is having a Pele-esque World Cup run. He really is. You're looking at a kid who is 23 years old. He won a World Cup at 19, won the Young Player of the Year award, Young Player of the Tournament, won the Golden Boot with 8 goals, was clearly, had they won the tournament, he would have gotten the Golden Ball. I mean, that was basically, it was between those two. Whoever wins this game is going to get it. And rightfully so. I'm not saying he should or he shouldn't. Awards are subjective anyway. The performance that he put on was nothing short of absolutely remarkable. Absolutely remarkable. And you got to think he still has 3 more tournaments to perform at this level again. There is a shot he's going to get 3 World Cups. He has a legitimate chance to get 3 World Cups. I watched that game. I watched him play this tournament with just shaking my head going, this is a type of international performance that we're seeing by a guy who had a dominant international performance 4 years ago. This is absolutely amazing. I think we should all just sit back, relax, and enjoy the Mbappe show when it comes to this international game. And Mbappe, please, get the hell out of Paris. Please get out. But that's all I'm going to say about him for now until we swing back on him later, because I have more plaudits to shower him with.
We're also going to turn and welcome our good friend, Professor Matt, in. Matt, how goes it? Discussing the virtues of this World Cup final, Mbappe, Messi, and probably the best final that I've seen in football. And you can give me perspective, because the only one that comes to mind sort of immediately when I think of other great finals in world soccer history, both international club, would have to be Istanbul. And I think given the storyline, and given that this was the World Cup final, not a European Cup final, given what was involved, I think that I kind of give this one a little bit of an edge. But yeah, we'll get it from you to help us cement this as the best World Cup final that we've ever seen. The best final that we've ever seen.
Yeah, I was racking while I was watching it. I was like, 2014 was pretty good, but that was more of a chess match. 2006, we remember the moments, but that was actually kind of a crap game. 94 was close, but that was maybe the worst final I've ever.
Oh, that was horrible. Horrible.
This was, for 80 minutes, it looked like a stinker, and then my God, it came to life, and it was just sheer madness. And I think that what makes this one special is normally I come on here and I start talking about tactics. I can't talk about tactics for this final because both managers did absolutely what they had to. It was just the star men showed up, and you can't ask for more than that.
I don't think that you can complain a bit about it. I mean, what made it so great in the end was you had 2, as I was saying to a number of people around me, you had 2 very unbalanced teams that were forced to go back out at the players playing out of position, central midfielders playing in defense, forwards playing in midfield, right backs playing at center forward, whatever, you name it, the insanity that it was going on. And it led to a very open final. In terms of a heavyweight boxing match, this was a classic. This was a counter punch type of game. And you're right, for the first 75 minutes, we had written off France saying, this could be 3 or 4-0. This was Messi's coronation. And all it took was a couple of moments of brilliance. And it started with one, that mistake that was inevitably going to come. Right. It started with a mistake. Let's be honest. At the beginning of this, we knew if Argentina could offensively put pressure on France's defense, they would concede a penalty. We've seen it. I know that script. I've seen it. I've seen it throughout the tournament. And sure enough, they go in, they get the penalty, Messi buries it, it's 1-0. And then just the absolute clinical definition of a counterattack to make it a 2-0 lead.
Mm-hmm.
And again, central, Messi, he's not going to get the official assist. He'll get that hockey assist because it's his little outside of the boot, cheeky flick on that sets McAllister running so that he can cut the ball across to Di Maria. Mr. Final himself is not going to miss on that stage. But for all of their first half dominance, for as bad as the France midfield looked throughout the first half and throughout much of the second half, Argentina was not able to extend that lead to their detriment. And when it got into the 70th minute and they made the changes, and when Didier Deschamps was left with nothing else but to go hell for leather, they were able to put pressure on a tiring Argentinian defense, which, you know, Martinez will go home with the Golden Gloves. But he was not infallible at all in this final.
He had one or two very big saves that seemed to cement that award for him. I think also because it's probably Livakovic. I think he already went home, so probably just wasn't there to receive the award. I mean that goalie,
but it's
difficult to do because you have to give it to whoever's there, and so it's got to be one of those two goalies, you know, for ceremonial purposes. So I get why he won it, but he wasn't the best goalie of that tournament. I mean, I don't think he was even close. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't think he was the best goalie of the tournament. I won't say he wasn't close. That's inappropriate.
I guess he had the most clean sheets or something like that, because whatever it was, he got it. And as much as you say that Livakovic wasn't there, the goalkeeper for Morocco was.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. And he played out of his mind. Out of his mind. And but you know, it's FIFA.
And
I mean,
so,
what do you do?
What do you do? But
it's FIFA.
You know, they concede the penalty. Another a moment of brilliance from Mbappe. We're going to extra time. Again, Messi gets it. Does Messi. You knew he was going to score what we thought was the winner. Again, we get to the 115th, 117th minute. I'm standing with the Argentinian fans, ready to celebrate. And yeah.
Mbappe hits a rifle.
Rifle.
I don't blame that handball. I would have done the same thing.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, you know, we're into the penalty shootout. And this is where, you know, we've learned the lessons from the past. You know who the first two people to step up are.
Yeah.
As it should be. You know, we're not going out like Brazil with our best goal scorer sitting waiting to take that fifth penalty that may or may not ever happen. But
and that's what you should do. Yeah. March him out. Get him out of the way. Go score. Get us on the move, man. Absolutely.
And I sometimes, you know, and I think every team is different, G, and you have coached, you've been a goalkeeper, you know how this goes in these conversations. You know, you start with the five guys that want to show up and step up and say that we're going to take it. You know, you may be the Netherlands and start with Virgil van Dijk, who might be the least expected penalty taker, but as the captain of the team, as the man that says, I will take this first one. It is on me. I will get us started. You may have Neymar who says, no, I want the fifth one. I want that pressure. The problem with taking that one last is, you know, what happens if you lose the shootout with your best player sitting in the wings? It ends, it's two misses from Argentina or from France that seal it, and Argentina run off their third World Cup, their first since Maradona won it almost single-handedly in 86. And this time around, you can say it was Messi's. Messi was the one that won it. And again, both Messi and Mbappe had tournaments where they were just out of their mind.
Mhm.
You know, when the lights were the brightest, they showed up. And you can say, 2014, Messi learned. The lights were on, the pressure was there. And at that point in time, let's be honest, at that specific point in time, Messi had gone through a phase where when the finals showed up, his performances could be iffy. He could get taken out of a game.
Yeah, you can get lost. Mhm.
This time around, there was no losing Messi. He realized what this was. He knew what was on the line. He knew there was no tomorrow. There was no coming back. And, come hell, high water, death or dismemberment, at least he can say he left it all out on the field.
And I think
Before-
this is way more special and way more sort of important because you could make the argument. I don't think it's really that big an argument. The Argentina team in 2014 was a lot better than this Argentina team, back to front. He had more help.
Mhm.
I think the Argentina team in 2010 was
better.
better than any of
that
them.
was
I
the
agree.
Maradona kamikaze tactics.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah, well, that decision to have him coach that squad was lambasted because they're like, you have an extraordinarily talented squad. Are you sure you want this man to coach it? I mean, does he know how to coach, or is he going to be trying to get attention on himself because he's a showman? And you saw him on the sidelines. What was he doing the whole time? He was performing. It was very entertaining to watch. It was great, but come on, that's not the guy you want managing your squad. I mean, I'm not speaking ill of him at all. I'm not. That's just not who you want managing that squad.
Maradona's my guy, but Maradona the manager versus Maradona the player,
Yeah.
very different. And those of us who know our American football, it was like watching the reverse of Buddy Ryan in Philadelphia. Buddy Ryan was a great defensive coach, didn't know fuck all about offense. Maradona, it was just score. If you don't shoot, you don't score.
Right.
What is defense?
Mhm.
I don't need that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He took a defender from like the second division of the Argentinian team that nobody had ever heard of,
Yeah.
because he said that he woke up one morning and God told him to take this guy.
Of course.
Now, whether or
The,
not
the universal excuse for a mistake. As God told me.
God told me, I don't know whether that was the God. I don't know whether that was your God or your cocaine. But somebody told you to do that, and they punted on that tournament. And yes, we can argue about, but we've seen more talented French sides.
Well, let me say this about this French team. Now that you bring them up, I mean, they had like 4 of their good players are gone. Like you lose. Granted, he hasn't really been a fixture of the squad. He hasn't been. But Karim Benzema is the best player in the world recognized right now. Yes, he hasn't been a fixture in the squad really in the last decade, but he's out. Pogba's a Harry Maguire kind of guy. Don't forget, he may have struggled. He plays a fantastic game for France. He does an amazing job. And you have an injured N'Golo Kante, and we all saw what he did during the last World Cup. He won that World Cup. He did. He didn't, and I got taken out in the final, but you saw every other game. He won that World Cup. And then you have a team, and Mike, we talked about this at the beginning of the tournament. They look even more as a team. This team is going to be scary in 2026. Their midfield that they brought with them, Rabiot's 27, and they had a guy on the bench who's 29. Everybody else is 22, 23, 20, and they only brought 6 midfielders. That's all they brought. They have a bunch of kids on this team who finaled, and had they not had to go to a shootout, they would have won that game. They would have won that game had they not gone to a shootout. So all I'm saying is, don't drip any tears for France. Mike, we talked about this earlier too. This team reloads. Like a mag on a gun. Pop out the old mag, slip in the new one. They're ready to go. These boys are going to be set, and they're going to be one of the favorites to win the next tournament as well. They are good, and they're going to continue to be good. They just keep churning out players.
I think, and I want to get G to jump in for a little bit in a second, but I will close. I think that France are our 21st century version of Brazil,
Yes.
where they
Absolutely.
are just so absolutely loaded back to front that
Yep.
they will walk into any tournament. And look, I said at
They
the
might
beginning,
not win, but they're going to be
there's going to be a player.
be a player.
G, jump in. What are your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, you know, when you guys were talking about it, I'm thinking like, where's America? How can America compete? And it's like, we can't. You know, it's one of those things that we
And
have
that's
these big
okay.
time players
It's
who is
okay.
coming. I agree. I'm a hater. You wouldn't believe. But like, I hate to say it, but like Spain, I hope they learned a lot from this tournament, because I really truly believe that they're the next bigger country coming up right now. They have a bunch of young squad. France will always kind of be there, but just matters if the coach can kind of get all those personalities at one time, kind of like what he did right now. Like you said, it's not the greatest team that they put out there, but look how great success they had. Yes, you have a 23-year-old who is going, you know, he's going to find out how to get himself in the game. Because the first half of the game, I don't think the announcers really announced except for where the hell is he at. For some reason, Argentina was playing on the opposite side of the field where he was at. Well, if you don't lose the ball right there, he's going to get the ball right away. And that was, I think, a very smart tactic, because as soon as they figured that out, Mbappe went right in the middle of the field. And that really helped out now, moving the ball from the defense to the offense. They really had to change up the tactic. And I don't blame the coach by any means of subbing 2 on 5 minutes, 6 minutes before. This is the final. You got to do what you got to do.
I agree. I applaud that move. Absolutely.
All traditional rules about coaching and playing the game goes out the window.
Hey, Mourinho said it best. You play finals to win. Yeah, I agree. I agree. That's all you have to do. G. Also, let's not forget, too, Christopher Nkunku is also injured out of his team.
Yeah.
I mean, the sheer number of French players who were on
4 players that would be starting.
And again,
and you still final and almost win.
And come within winning it with a team that I thought was not going to be up to the task. I will admit that I was wrong. You know, in the end, they didn't win, but they got closer than a lot of other teams did.
Mm-hmm.
And we will say, like, look, it's going to be a different tournament in 2026. But based on what I see right now, you're right, Steph. Why not France? What?
Yeah. Well, but to be honest, guys, you also have to figure out too, or you know, think about is how the tournament and who you play in all the other rounds. That always has to play into it. When let's say it's France and I don't know, let's say England first round and England wins. Well, he just managed because of that matchup right there. It just so happened that France kind of had a little bit easier, and you have Morocco.
England's not beating France,
right? But you have Morocco.
They're just not going to do it.
Like, what can you do? So, like, you have an easy semifinal game. So, like, it really has to come down to matchup and the tournament and where they play in. It comes down to every single tournament.
I somewhat agree, but I just feel like out of every single club in this tournament, every single country, who is the one team that I would favor to win probably every game, no matter who their opponent was, it's France. It's France.
Go for it, Matt.
One thing that I would throw out there, because Stead, I agree 100% with you. And in some ways, France could be scarier than Brazil. And yeah, this is kind of mucky, but when you have, I don't know, your former empire still kind of your unofficial empire, and you can draw from all those resources, yeah, the reload gets easier.
Yeah.
But here's my question, or here's the one thing that I see that I think is worth asking. Is Deschamps the guy in 4 years? And is that potentially something that gets in their way? Because we've seen very good international managers. There was a time when Jurgen Löw was one. The Basque with Spain.
Yeah.
And sometimes, especially after you win, and he's won.
Yeah.
That just gets weirdly stale.
Agreed.
Is it time maybe for him to step down and you bring in a Zizou?
Yeah, I was gonna say if Zidane wants the job, but you know what? I could see Deschamps going. I'm good. I've had enough. I can see him saying that. I could, but we should probably talk more about this later, Matt, or because you did bring up a good point. Because yes, an attraction for me for France is actually I'm looking out going, wow, I see a bunch of black kids out there playing.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. It's kind of weird. But when you go back to France, because don't forget, they didn't qualify in 94. Let's go back to 98, though. That team, you know, it wasn't near like it was now, but they had quite a bit of African representation, but it was mostly North African representation. You're seeing now, these guys are from Mali, they're from Senegal, they're from Congo, you know, that are playing for the squad.
It's a sort of double-edged sword because
it is
when you see a multi-ethnic France team win, because I was that was me in 1998.
And that was me in 2018.
Yeah,
they had 15 African players on that squad.
I was. This is a good thing.
Yeah.
Vice versa, though, there's like, well, okay, why is this and why when these multi-ethnic French teams fail, I have to read racist French journalists,
of course,
say crazy things that this team wasn't French.
Of course. Not and of course they have their head at their ass so far they don't realize that without those players they would have been out in the quarterfinals against England.
Gonna put out Giroud and
Right. And look, you guys know me. I love Olivier Giroud. Love him, and I will never say anything ill of him. But to talk deeper about this, whatever France is doing, because let's not forget, the Tunisian team, I believe, had 9 players that were born in France. This Moroccan squad had 3 or 4 players that were born in France, but several others that were born in Belgium and Spain. So this migration you're seeing of African players who are playing for their countries of their parents, but you already know what this is. These are players that are born in these other countries, and they get that call that says, hey, you're probably not going to get a call up to Belgium. You're probably not going to get a call up to France or Spain. And they say, okay, I can go play for Tunisia. I can go play for Morocco. There was a French player, I believe his last name was Hadji, and he ended up playing for Morocco and became a star. He was big in the 98 Cup. Yeah. So you've seen this type of thing happening, and it's grown to the point where it's actually surprising when you look at foreign-born players who play for other squads. It's high, but it's specifically challenging when you look at the players who are playing in North and Western Africa, the number of them that were actually born in France, Belgium, the Netherlands, Spain, England. They're from those countries. That's where they're from. And I don't know how I feel about it. I really don't. I don't know how I feel about it.
It's incredible.
Yeah. Matt, maybe that's a podcast we could have at a later date.
And it's weird because we think about this in the African and I guess also to the Caribbean context. I know like the Jamaican.
Hey, Trinidad had a white dude on their team, man. Remember that? Yeah, they had a white dude on their team. Yeah,
but they have Indian Trinis and stuff like that. I know a lot of people who from Jamaica who were very, very upset about the fact that Raheem Sterling, who to Jamaican footballers is basically Sadio Mane to Senegalese fans, right? They follow his career and they were heartbroken that he opted to play for England.
Yeah. But even though I don't think anybody in their right mind would sell Raheem Sterling to play for Jamaica. You got to be kidding me. But I get what you're saying.
There's also that weird tension there too, because every time Raheem Sterling screws up an England kid, I have to read the headline from the Daily Mail.
Oh, right.
Jamaican-born Raheem Sterling.
Of course.
Like, oh, I see what you're doing.
I see what you're doing. Yeah, I see what you're doing.
I get that though, even though I want to say this.
He moved there when he was 2.
I have read a lot of the French stuff. I've read a lot of the French journalism. I've talked to then a lot of French people about their relationship with the French team, right?
That team that was on the field at the end of the game was 10 black guys and Hugo Lloris. That's who that was on at the end of that game. Yeah. Like a football team.
Let's look at what that was, right? We go back to the debacle that was the 2010 World Cup for France, coming off of a final in 2006, right? This is Patrice Evra. This is those guys. And amongst the things that comes out, is that there is this quota system that the French Football Federation has insisted upon, where you have to have X number of white French players, You can have X number of Black French players. You can have X number of Algerian French players, but that representation has to be in this certain proportion. It gets made public. It is an extreme embarrassment to France. They turn around and say, okay, we are not going to do that anymore. What do you get? The 2018 team, which looks like the people who play football in France. It is a multi-ethnic society, whether they like it or not. And you can
and
watch
all those players are coming out of Paris. And if anybody's been to Paris, they know what Paris looks like.
Yes. And they're not coming out of the neighborhoods. They're coming out of the suburbs. And if you know anything about the suburbs of France, that is where you tend to have the largest immigrant population. And there has been a tension between who has access to the idea of French. But let's not act like, you know, the US is perfect. That we recognize everybody as being anything.
Oh yeah. I mean, I really think we have no room to really overly criticize in that respect. I know.
But actually, what I was going to circle back around.
But yeah, I think we should circle back to the game because like this is a great tangent, and I'd love. What I'm saying is basically, I'd love to discuss this more. I'd love to dedicate a full show to this if we could. I think that would be a great thing to do.
Let's talk more.
But I do want to get this point. I've talked to a lot of French people. The French journalists do not always speak for the French people insofar as when you talk to the French people about their relationship with the French team, they recognize those people as French. They are French. They speak French.
Right.
They carry the French flag.
Right. Most of them were born here, born in France. Yeah.
All right. And so just because some journalist puts in African-born Paul Pogba or something like that doesn't necessarily mean, you know, when they won the World Cup, they were French. When they did not win the World Cup, they're still French, right? They, you know, it was Emmanuel Macron who was on the phone with Kylian Mbappe saying, please stay in France, right? Because you are French. We need to be French, right? And so that is where it is at. And so, yeah, I get it. And we can have this conversation because it goes a lot deeper. And I feel
it was great to see Macron though getting so hyped during that game. That was so awesome to see. You saw the child in him, you know. He's a young dude. To see him fired up that way.
I think we saw everything.
I was waiting for that shirt to come off for him just to put a jersey on. Like just throw a kid on, man.
It was
like the Croatian PM did 4 years ago.
Head of state with that kind of emotion. So 4 years ago, you had, you know,
well, Macron.
But the lady from Croatia.
From Croatia.
She had the kid on, but she was still very much, you know.
Very, and of course, being in Russia, you had Putin, who looked like he didn't even want to be there because he doesn't understand this.
No, but it was, you know, again, cycling back to the game, let's give attention where attention is due. You know, we talk about the French team because we believe that they will be back. We feel confident that they will be back. You know, this is the end of an era for Argentina. And although Scaloni, who nobody would have thought would have been the guy to get the job done.
Great job. Actually, Mike, correct me if I'm wrong. He got the job because the Argentinian FA didn't have money, right?
Yes, they didn't have money to pay anybody else, and he got the job. He's won the cup. If I'm him, I'm riding out.
Yeah.
You know, it does not get any better than this. I won the World Cup. I won the World Cup
at 44.
Yeah. With a team.
And the guy's my age.
Yeah. That probably, like who's on there that
he was teammates with Messi too. So now that's going to be an odd kind of relationship. Like, hey, I was your teammate, but now I'm your coach. You got to listen to me.
Alexis McAllister plays at Brighton and Hove.
That's Look, there's a guy on the squad who plays in the MLS. Just the fact that he's on the squad, no matter how he got there, he's on the squad. He gets a medal, and he deserves
Couple
it.
RPL
He deserves it.
in the squad too.
Yeah.
Yes, this is a squad that was cobbled together at Messi. Like in a lot of ways, it's like Messi, Di Maria, a bunch of guys named Martinez,
Mhm.
and 20 other guys you found at a bodega.
Yeah. Yeah.
And-
I mean, you can go through the squad and the ones that play for the bigger clubs, you haven't heard of them because they're young. They're like, they're 20, 21, 22. They're not seeing a lot of burn on their clubs yet, but they play for Betis.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
And I think even in talking to the Argentinian fans, they were like, in a lot of ways, this was it. We know that it's not going to look that good for the next couple of years. But for the grace of FIFA expanding the World Cup to a point where 70% of the teams in CONMEBOL are now going to have a chance to qualify, like you actually have to work to not qualify out of CONMEBOL
Yeah,
anymore.
for real. You're going to see great playoff games between, sorry, Coach Matt, but Bolivia and Venezuela.
Seriously,
Yeah, but
like,
But you got to throw in some injuries in there. If there's gonna be more teams, how many more games they're gonna be playing, then there's gonna be so many more factors with this. I'm not a fan of expanding it. I think you have a bunch of more hackers in there. It's gonna expand the game worldwide, but for right now, I don't know.
I think
I feel bad for these kids nowadays. They're running so much.
yeah, I get it. I also
We're in
know
here.
that the conversation was the same when they went from 16 to 24 and from 24 to 32. If this World Cup proved to me one thing so far as Morocco, especially because I find it hard to point to Croatia since Croatia has been allowed to compete as an independent country in the World Cup. What, they finished third twice and been to another finals, and we're talking about 5 World Cups. If that, right? Like, Croatia may not think that they are a good soccer playing nation. And, there may be some legitimate drop off now that you have the generation of Ivan Perisic and Luka Modric heading for the exit door. But let's be honest. They have been to the World Cup. They have proven that they have been there. They have been successful at pretty much every time that they've been there. So how do you complain about a country that in 5 World Cups has been to a final and been to finish third 3 times? Shoot, you have a better record right now than England does.
Good,
More trophies, yeah.
good, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Even though it's a third place trophy, it's still a trophy.
It's a trophy. Hey, what are you talking about? Look,
They
when you semi,
better.
you got 2 more games. You get to the semis.
Yeah.
You got 2 more games.
Yep.
Yep.
And
Absolutely.
just imagine, and I put in a chat about Yugoslavia. Just imagine that team playing with all the quality players. That
Yes.
team would wreck a
And
lot.
Mike,
of
Matt, I'm going to be reposting your what if, because if you haven't heard Matt's
What
if with Yugoslavia, it's actually one of our highest viewed videos on YouTube and one of our most downloaded podcasts. I encourage you to please listen to it again. It's a 2-part. It is fascinating, Matt. It's fascinating. So,
well researched, well executed. But I use them as an example to point out, I think that I think the first one is going to be awkward. I think 2030 might be awkward.
mhm.
I think by 2034, when we get used to this, and if they don't mess around with it and let it go for a little bit at the 48 teams, we will start to see that a rising tide lifts all ships.
Agreed.
I think that it is going to be good. I am looking forward to finally seeing some countries that I think for a long time have deserved the opportunity to be there,
Mhm.
but for a variety of reasons, qualifying and the way that it is set up, have not been able to make it.
Mhm.
I think that the new qualifying rules, especially in Africa,
Yes.
may actually give us a better representation of African football.
Which has
than we've
been, but Mike, I'm gonna 100% agree with you because I think that's one of the reasons why we have such difficulty with African teams even reaching a semi. Because let's not forget, only 3 teams outside of Europe and South America have reached semi. Only
Mhm.
3, and one of them was in 1930, and it was the United States with a bunch of Scottish guys, so it doesn't really count. So
Yeah,
I mean, I
and
think you have to
Haitian.
discount. Yeah, exactly. I think you have to discount everything that happened before 1950, to be honest with you. But you're seeing though, like Zambia has been a quality country in African football. They have finaled in an AFCON. I believe I'm not sure if they've won, but I know they finaled in an AFCON. Burkina Faso is another country that's been on the cusp and can compete. But also, I don't want to see a situation
once in a while you hear
where
that name get out there.
yeah, but I don't want to see a situation though where we're having to pick between Senegal and Egypt. I don't want to see that anymore.
But
I
at the
don't
same
think
time,
it should be at that level. At that level where you're not going to get the best of African soccer because there's just not enough spots for them. And I'm not saying that you have to kick out European countries who have a longer history and who've been there longer, but what I am happy to see though is that this expansion should not benefit Europe and South America the most. It should benefit Africa the most. That's who should get the most from this new move.
Beyond that, though, remember, African qualifying is set up as an unseeded a draw.
Just is what it is.
And so, as often as not, you get these groups that have Senegal and Egypt in it. And you're looking at it and walking in to the World Cup because of the way that they were doing it, that you're going to have one of them. You're not going to have both Cameroon and Ivory Coast because only one can make it, right? And so you're already, if they can go to a system and fix that so that you have a better representation of this and spread the wealth out a little bit so that you have it so that you can qualify more of your top teams and it's not this straight up thing. Heaven forbid you get a group one year that's like Ghana, Senegal, Morocco.
Yeah. Burkina Faso and Zambia.
Yeah, like, all right, shoot. There are 4 of the best teams in Africa right now, and 3 of them aren't going to make it because they're all playing and only one out of that group can go. I think with this expansion, it'll force them to relook at how they do qualifying.
Yes.
Because now they'll have to account for all the places and the playoff place, right? So they'll redo that. Maybe we'll get a more representative qualification process.
Right.
All right. I wonder what South Africa is going to do or South America is going to do.
Yeah.
Do you continue to go with this 3-year-long 20-team slog when 6 teams make it right off the bat and another one has a playoff place?
Right.
So there are legit only 3 teams in all of South America that won't make it.
Yeah.
No disrespect. I think Bolivia is a great country and stuff like that, but really?
Yeah. But hopefully
Venezuela?
But yeah, hopefully this will
be baseball, basketball.
I was gonna say, they play baseball and basketball. They'll knock some home runs, but also
and Venezuela, it's more Caribbean than it is South Africa.
It is. Hopefully this will force them to actually do something about this Copa America tournament that they have, because it is one of the most corrupt and very poorly organized tournaments that happen 2, 3, like whenever they just kind of have it. And it needs to really get, the interest is there. With this new streaming, the way people can watch games right now, the exposure that you're getting to the world with your tournament, people are interested. Clean it up. And so that way we can see, the second best, or I would say, continental tournament. It's people want to watch it. They really want to watch it. It's great football. They really, really want to watch it. And the more eyes, well, hopefully, some of you South American countries, you'll need to chill with the diving. You got to calm down. You got to chill. It's out of control. It's out of control. When you watch, like, Chile is getting a bit better about it because they've had some exposure with winning a couple of Copa Americas. They've got some marquee players that play in Europe. But when you watch some Colombia teams playing, you're just like, bro, come on, man.
Just to play devil's advocate for a second, when you watch how physical and how like CONCACAF-esque those games are, it's like, I understand though why you dive, because it's like I'm running up to like 15, 20 minutes, all I'm getting is kicked in the shins, kicked in the shins, kicked in the shins. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to flop right now because, and so it's the one time where the guy pulls the kick, you flop over, and it's like, oh, he dived.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been getting kicked in the shins for the last hour. What do you think I'm going to do? I'm going to fall over. Come on now.
CONCACAF-esque goes down in the pantheon of terms now. We're using that from now on. Great word, Mike.
Look, anybody who's watched it took watching a couple of Copa America games for me to go back and say, oh, that explains it. I get it now. The problem is y'all just ain't as talented as they are, so it looks more hack-eyed when you do it up here than it does. I mean, at least when you do it down there, it looks good. Up here, it just looks uncoordinated.
Bad. Looks
So
like
bad
the
that
kids
now-
got cut from the track team.
Yeah, well, it's like you see basketball, NBA, they're beginning to flop now. Like, is this flopping going to other sports? Like, oh, now NFL, you see Cody linemen like get touched and they put their arms back. Like, please stop. It's bad enough in soccer. We don't need it in other sports here. Like, what, baseball's
It
next?
has been going on forever and a day. How many times did we see receivers when a defensive back like breeze by them,
Yeah,
throw
brushes
their
the
ass
shoulder
shoulder
pad.
back and just throw their because the stakes are so high. You got to try. We've known that this is going on in basketball.
Yeah.
And we've said for a long time, if you want to legislate it out of the game, what you do is you don't reward it. It becomes a yellow card offense. It's not reviewable by VAR. And if you took a diving and said simply that is not a reviewable offense, I think that would make a lot of difference, right?
Yeah.
When you see these guys, because the foul, because the penalty is such a valuable thing, that's what what's the incentive not to?
Yeah, but then that means every single rep in every single league has to uphold those laws, and they don't, because we see it. One game they do, one game they don't. With regards to VAR or not, it's impossible.
Well, I'm going to say this, though, when it comes to reffing, though, I guess to kind of come back to what we're originally supposed to be talking about, the ref for this game, the World Cup final. That's one of the best officiated matches I have ever seen in my life.
Polish.
Ever seen in my life. What's his name?
Polish dude.
Yeah, and his Polish dude. I'm going to look up his name right now. I was extraordinarily pleased with the way that game was called.
Agree.
Tournament.
I mean, there was a couple times where I was like, dude, you missed that. And they showed the replay, and I was like, wow, how did you see that?
I missed that, yeah.
For a tournament that was not particularly well officiated, final was splendid.
Agree.
But I have to agree again, though. It's a merit system. The refs get scored.
Yeah.
And so by the time you got to that final, he was the ref that had the highest scores throughout the tournament, and you showed why that guy who ref that game was probably the best in the world, and it was a well ref game. And here's instead how I know that it was a well ref game. I don't know who he was. I can't think of it, and I can't think of a single moment where I even thought of him.
Okay.
Matt, I'm gonna let you pronounce that because I don't want to be disrespectful.
Simon Meranchek.
Okay.
I didn't even think of him the entire game.
I didn't either. Didn't either. Only time I did was when I would raise my hands and I would be like, oh, and then they'd show somewhat of a replay and I would just kind of go, right, okay, let me just shut up here because clearly I don't know what I'm talking about.
The only notable moment was actually when he did absolutely the right thing. He was like, I'm gonna stop the match. Drew, you come over here. I want to have words with you.
Yep.
Oh, go back now. No card needed. Just let me get this under control.
Yep. And you saw
early on too.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And early on in the game, like he's like, this is my game as ref. You guys are gonna be playing the game. This is my game. And he said that tone early on, and the teams fell in line. It just seemed like, yep, I got you. Yep,
that's what I wanted to point out was the amount of bitching that players do on the field is always extraordinarily high. And you saw that slowly dissipate as the game went on. Where they heard the whistle, they were basically like, "Yes, sir," and backed up. I felt like I was watching a rugby ref. I mean, they were like, "I'm not going to cross this dude. I'm not going to do it." Because all we ask for is consistency, and he was as consistent as I've ever seen. I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Getting control of a match early is part of the ref's job.
Yeah. Yep.
He did that, spectacular.
He had every one of those guys right by the ball. So he was like, "You're not moving unless I say so." And they respected that. I really like, I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. But don't forget who's in charge of all the FIFA officials now at that World Cup was, of course, I forgot his name. Gee, who's the Italian dude with alopecia? And he's a legendary referee.
He's like a
scared the crap out of him. He looked at a player and they were like,
he
"Okay."
controls those games though. Yeah.
Like 6'3".
He used to do the finals. It seemed like
all the time.
Bulging eyes.
Eyes bugging.
Oliver Kahn's the only one doesn't like him because he never won a final when he was reffing. But he was the one that said, you're gonna put all the stoppage time in the game. That's why you're getting 8, 10, 12, 14 minutes of stoppage time. He's like, no, they're gonna play. And then he was the one that was obviously had his hands like, okay, this is how you control the game. And yes, this is a poorly officiated tournament overall. I think it was. But as Mike, you said, the cream rise to the top, the best match officials were getting picked, and dude, they found one. I think he's going to be kind of the face of officiating for the next 5 to 10 years.
I think he'll be in, because he's a UEFA rep, I think we'll see more of him in Champions League finals and things like that. He could potentially become one of the go-to refs. I think he was a good, like you said, I thought that it was a well-ref game. I think that he set the tone in the locker room because they didn't come. He must have gone in for when he addressed the team captains in the locker rooms and said, "Look, this is how it's going to be. This is what I'm going to do. This is what it's going to be. It's going to be like this. And no, I'm not having any of that."
Right.
And I want to think it was the semifinal game with Argentina where like 4 or 5 guys surrounded the ref. It was kind of bullying him and kind of like, I think one guy pushed him and I think the ref pushed him back. I was like, there's something's going on. And that's very stereotypical, I would say, South American teams. They kind of bully the refs in the game to get those calls. And you can tell whatever, like you said, the beginning of the game, you saw nothing like that. So whatever the message he said prior to the game in the locker room, both these teams took him dead serious.
You didn't even really see him on that first penalty.
No,
like there was the kind of obligatory protests about that, but nobody surrounded him. Nobody tried to get into his face. And when they did, he waved them off, and it was like, no, this is what it is. And I don't even think VAR needed to really review it. They were like, nah, if you say this is what it's going to be. I thought he called a really great game. And the reason why was because I didn't really pay attention to who he was. And I didn't need to think about it. Right. And so that was the well-ref game. I think it was the best final that I've seen. I think it was a great capper to a good tournament. I don't think that it was the best World Cup.
Overall, yeah, I agree.
I think there was a lot of issues, starting with the timing. Look, it took a toll on us. We weren't able to cover it the way that we would like to because there was so much going on amongst Thanksgiving, wrapping up for the semester. Like even we were really struggling.
Family obligations. Yeah, it was hard. It was very hard.
Very hard for us to cover it as effectively as we wanted to. I apologize for that. Like we weren't able to get on to do previews and things like that because it was just such a bad time of year, right?
Right.
The whole thing
this
about
is a summer tournament. It's supposed to be a summer tournament.
It's supposed to be a summer tournament, right? It's supposed to be where you can take effective vacation time and be in the warm weather and things like that, right? I was talking to some friends of mine about viewership and things like that and saying where this would rank, and I said, I don't think that it's going to be a particularly well viewed final. I don't think that it was a particularly well viewed tournament. I think people were excited about it. I think a lot of people followed it. I think it got the attention that a World Cup would get because it's a World Cup. But as far as, people taking days off to go and watch games and, all of that sort of stuff. I don't think it was there to the extent that I would have expected from a summer tournament.
But isn't it winter in southern hemisphere? So we just kind of flipped it around. So now we got screwed and they didn't.
Yeah, but winter in the summer hemisphere is like 62. It doesn't get that cold down there.
So Argentina, I don't know. I know like Australia, the schools are out right now because it's their summer break.
It's hot as fucking hell down. Sorry, it's hot as heck down there. They're going through some heat waves.
And the funny thing is, I was talking to a friend, a kid that he was like, he's in Sydney. He said it's actually kind of cool. It's like 70. It's not like
Really?
it's not as hot in Australia as you might think it would be right now.
But the media is portraying like it's the hottest, the hottest day was like about 2 weeks ago ever on Earth or something like that. Or,
it was. He was saying like it's been
hot.
It's been 70s. It's actually been kind of cool down there. So he was like, he's expecting it to warm up, but
that's how I see Australia, to be honest. If I ever go down there, I want 70 degrees and blonde hair, surfers and whatnot. But yeah, I can see 70 degrees down there.
I found out that if that's what you want, though, you might want to wait until later December, January for that to happen, because November, December is actually their version of like June. It's kind of iffy.
Yeah.
Anyway,
but I think for the very first time, having it in the Middle East, we don't know what's going to happen. 20 years looking back at that, we can discuss it, but to know really what the effects of it, we don't know. It's the first time ever that's not a major soccer country. And yeah, it's been since day one of how the heck did they get the win the vote. So even to now is a lot of questions, stuff like that. We really don't know the full extent until 10, 15, 20 years from now.
But I think with anything like that, one of the requirements is it's a summer tournament. We have no problem with smaller nations, non-traditional soccer nations, hosting this tournament. It wasn't that it was a smaller nation. It wasn't even that it was an Arab nation. My problem was how they got it. And then the backflips that needed to be done to accommodate what was a rash and bad decision in the first place, right? The steadfast refusal to acknowledge the issues that were there. Just because we had a good final does not wash away the hundreds and thousands of people who died trying to put together those stadiums, right?
Never got paid.
Or the abject issues with that guest worker program that they have in countries like that. Those are major league issues that need to be addressed. And if you want to say, well, it's not your culture, you shouldn't. No, those are human rights abuses. I'm sorry.
But also, I don't normally say this, but I will for this particular issue, for this tournament. You kind of have to fall in line. You kind of do. You kind of do.
There's falling in line with certain social norms.
Oh no, I'm more talking about having the tournament has to be in the summer.
Yes.
You have to have it in the summer. It has to fit in the general feel of what a major international footballing tournament should be. You got to do it. And if you can't do it in the parameters based on whatever it is, then you just shouldn't host a tournament. You shouldn't.
If the IOC will tell people that they can't host the Olympics in November because it's the summer games,
yeah,
why can't FIFA say that?
Of
Look,
course.
no, this tournament has to be based on the agreements that we have with the players' associations and the federations. This tournament has to be in July.
Yeah,
Melbourne not going to be.
Yeah, Sydney last hosted the Olympics in 2000, and they had it in September because of the weather. And even then, there was some pushback on that because it was kind of so late in the summer for these summer games. And you see that hasn't happened again since then.
No, but I wish they would have a summer games in an area where it ended up that you had to have the summer games end 3 weeks before the winter games started.
Right. It doesn't make any sense. Yeah, it's
really so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna have the winter games in December, and then we're gonna have the summer games in January.
Right.
Like,
Because
no,
Qatar wants to host the summer games.
no, it doesn't.
Like when Qatar hosts the World Championships in track, they had to run the marathon at 1:00 in the morning.
All right,
At
well,
1 a.m. And you should see those guys. They were pouring in sweat at 1 a.m.
I've been there,
It's
and
just too hot.
I've been there. I know how hot it gets in July. It is hot. It is hot. It is crazy hot. It is not.
Yeah, it's not 85, 90.
There has to be a joke in there somewhere, like how hot is it? There has to be something going on right now.
When US hosted in 94, it was very hot in several parts of the United States when they hosted. They were showing how the field temperatures were 110, 120 degrees. I can't imagine what the field temperatures would have been in Qatar had they hosted that tournament at the same time. It would have been unbearable, absolutely unbearable.
The air temperature in where I was in northern Iraq was averaging 100 to 110. So you got to believe that the field temperature in you'd be talking about 140, 150, and that's just not. All right, so yeah, we do need to welcome in our good friend, World Cup Rob. Rob, we have talked about a variety of things, including the World Cup today. But let's get your thoughts on this final and this tournament as a whole. Let's start with what you thought, how you felt about this final.
Loved every minute of it. It had everything you could want. You had, seemingly Argentina side who was scrappy, who went after every ball. It was beautiful to watch. I mean, because it was pure continental football. And France looked like they had no answers whatsoever. Their midfield was decimated, and invincible. I mean, Mbappe got like maybe 3 touches the first half, and they were all not in his usual spot where he normally gets the ball, which is running down the left flank. Very brave for the Chomps to make the changes in the half. They didn't do much necessarily either. And then I think once the penalty got called, and that was it pretty much, because then, when you score that, the saying, like the 2-goal lead is dangerous.
Yeah. 2-0 is the most dangerous lead in football.
Yeah.
2-0.
And you get one, and they
Arsenal fans know that all too well.
Right. They got one on a penalty, and it still counts. I mean, it wasn't during the run and play, and they believed, and that's all they freaking believed. And with a team as dangerous and experienced in World Cups as France has been, they just came back, and then Mbappe just had a beautiful goal for the second one. Incredible, just incredible. Like 9 out of 10 players in the world, maybe 9.5 players in the world can't make that, and let alone on the biggest stage in international football. And that's all they needed, pretty much. And then the game, then like we thought we were gonna get the storybook ending when Messi got that goal. And we were like, Messi won it for Argentina, right? And then we got the elbow that we know about, and that was incredible. Gutsy call, a good call, by the book. Loved, and then obviously the penalty kicks and everything, which is, I know people sometimes don't like the penalties, but to me, people think they're easy, and they're not. They're not easy. I'm sorry.
No, they're not easy. They're extraordinarily difficult.
Yeah, like they're pressure induced, and
well, especially because it really is for the shooters always has the advantage, and right there you have the odds going in one direction, so it's not really a team sport. It's just really the shooter's gonna hopefully just make it on frame.
Yeah, well, but pretty much penalty kicks are a conclusion to saying the team sport aspect didn't work to find a winner, so we have to do it this way now.
Now's
your shot.
I'm sorry.
You wanted to talk about this.
I did. And I have tried since 1994 to understand why this is par for the course. I have. And I just can't get behind it for a cup final. For a final. I can understand it for knockout stages because, these players have to play another game, things like that. I just can't get behind this. I don't want to see a Champions League final do this. I don't even want to see an FA Cup final do this. I don't want to see it.
I guess the question is, do you want golden goal?
Yes. And I've been look.
And or subs in.
Golden goal was fantastic when they had it in the World Cup. We all remember when Senegal beat Sweden in that game. That was a wonderful game. And France also won a game with golden goal. It was fantastic. Golden goal is the way to do it, but not the way they did it before, because golden goal was still there. But if they ran out of time, they still went to shootout. I can't even say I have a perfect solution for this. I don't think I do. And I don't know what's the right way. This just feels wrong to me. It just feels wrong to me. I don't think that, I don't have the solution. I don't. But just because I don't have the solution doesn't mean I can't point out the problem. This is a problem.
It's a problem, but it's a problem without a viable solution. I think golden goal's a great answer, right?
Yeah, I think you turn the clock off and just say, look.
But you have to allow for the fact
your bench. What's the point of having 26 dudes if you can only play 15
Clear
of them?
Bench. Yep.
Yeah, but I get that.
Clear your
More
bench.
extra subs, whatever you gotta do. Yep.
Look, we remember those years, Mike. You talked about those Brazil teams and how they reloaded, and how we all knew that Brazil's B team was good enough to qualify for a World Cup, but they couldn't take advantage of their bench. They couldn't take advantage of it. Okay. So, hey, look, if you want to say this is the best team, hey, you played your 100. You could even stick to the 120 minutes. Okay, guys, look, we're flipping a coin here. Here we go. Clock's off. We're playing.
Okay, so you stick
They
to
do it in
120.
hockey.
You stick to 120 minutes. They do it in hockey, where in hockey you have unlimited.
Right. I'm not saying.
Well, no,
right,
and I think the thing about it is, in the playoffs in hockey, you have unlimited subs.
Mm-hmm.
Right,
and you can go out and in.
Line changes.
Yeah,
line changes and things like that. So yes, you can have a game go 3 overtimes before somebody gets a winner. I think, in baseball, you are limited by the number of pitchers. And outfield players that you actually have. Mm-hmm. But you can have a game that goes 18, 19 innings. Mm-hmm. And they're going to play, but it's a less physically strenuous game all the way around, right? You're limited by. I guess the problem is after the 120 minutes, what do you do?
Look, let's look at youth soccer now. Youth soccer does allow unlimited substitutions throughout the game, but you can only substitute at strategic times during the game. This isn't every youth soccer league. These are for the actual kids who are actually pretty good.
High school's done the same thing in certain points. So
you can sub at specific intervals throughout the game. Players can go out, they can come back in later like that. If you get to your 120 minutes, hey, you got a clock. Every 10 minutes, you're allowed to do a substitution, or whatever time interval they think is appropriate. Yes, will it cause the game to drag on? Absolutely. But having seen what we saw, Mike, you also said it was an anticlimactic ending to a phenomenal game. And we all knew, the commentators knew, everybody knew, if you get to a shootout, Argentina's going to win. Everybody knew it. There wasn't a question in my mind that, granted, you and I have an advantage because Emmy used to be one of our goalies, and we've seen how he does in this situation. But
and I love how it said that Lloris this is his weakness.
And it's not what he's good at.
Yep.
It's not what he's good at. Lloris is a phenomenal goalie. Yes, he's a Spur, and I'll say it to the end. He is a phenomenal goalkeeper.
Yep.
But let's make him do the one thing in his game that he's not the best at, and cause it to lose you a cup final.
Yep.
I don't know. I have a fundamental problem.
I get it. It's like deciding the NBA championship with free throws,
and you have Shaq on your
team.
Right.
It's deciding the Super Bowl with a field goal kicking contest.
Right.
It's deciding the Major League Baseball, the World Series Game 7
Yeah.
with a home
Home
run
run
hit
derby.
derby.
Derby. Yeah.
Yeah, although we might actually like to see that.
It'd be kind of fun.
So
Yeah, baseball gets a little older.
all right, so I guess my solution here, I propose something. Then we can talk more about the actual tournament, since I came on late. But I guess my solution is 5 subs for the regular time. What if you add 5 minutes each to each half in extra time, and then but each half you get another sub. So for example, you get another sub in the first half of extra time, and you get one more sub in the second half. That will probably buy you another 1 or 2 minutes of injury time for each half.
I think you got to go golden goal, but I think that after 120 minutes, it's unlimited subs. The benches are open, everything is open,
And it's still golden goal.
and it's
So,
golden goal.
so if you played, you can come back on, is what you're saying then.
Yeah, if you played your guy and you took him
Look,
off,
So Giroud can come back on.
Argentina should have been allowed to bring back in Di Maria.
they should have been just like France could have afforded to bring back on Giroud.
Olivier, because he would have been great for those corner kicks they were getting at the end of the game.
And then and that to me doesn't too much mess with the integrity of the game where it
No.
But then you don't need a
something
26-man
gimmicky.
roster.
Yeah. But you know
Then
what,
you don't
though?
need a 26-man roster
what I'm
because
saying
you're going
is
to have
by
the
the
old
time
guys
you-
coming off.
But by the time you get to that point, though, you're still 120 minutes in. You're still going to want to win that game of regulation.
Mhm.
You're not going to play for that. No one's going to play to have to deal with that, because then all of a sudden the parameters of your tactics and the rules kind of get thrown out a little bit. And a lucky bounce here or there can cause you to lose very quickly. You make the
And
right
so-
sub, boom,
so-
game's over.
Game's over. So the same thing, like I could see this where it's like, you know what? I think I can take off Messi for overtime and then put him back in.
Put him back in.
All right, great.
Great.
But
You
what
want-
happens if France scores while he's out?
Exactly.
That's
So so it's not like you can't really game it that well.
No,
Let's take Messi out so we can put it back in there. Okay, great. You take Messi out. You now lost your counter. You're going to stick 8 defenders in there. Well, we've seen that doesn't always work. And often,
But that's
more times
soccer.
than not,
But
it
what if it
doesn't
does
work.
work? But what if it does
More
work?
often
Like
than
that's
not, it
soccer.
doesn't
It's
work.
the chess pieces at that time is try to get the right piece at the right place at the right time because you're 120 minutes into it. Now you go more tactical styles. Now you're thinking of longevity. It's a different game then. So that's what we're
It
asking
is a
for. We're
different-
asking for a different game.
it is
That's what we're
a
looking
different.
for.
It is a different game, and I get it. But that's, we always said penalties was the best bad idea that we had. But for one, I have come around to that because so many people are turned off by the fact that this ended. Now, I'm discounting the people who was like, "Oh no, Fox needs to switch over to NFL coverage because that's what people want to see." No, everybody wanted to see the World Cup.
Want to see the World Cup.
I don't think for a second, and I'm glad that Fox did not, because oh my God, could you imagine?
Yeah.
The uproar would have been insane.
I had already switched to FS1 because I knew it was being simulcast over there. So I just went ahead and switched because I was like, I don't even want to deal with it. I'm just going to switch.
That's what I did because I was terrified when
I
I
was
saw
too.
Urban Meyer on the pregame.
Yep.
I was like, "What are you telling me?"
Yeah.
Yeah,
Especially if you're living in Philly, because that was a Philly game.
Yep.
It
That was
was
a game that was coming on.
it was a Philly game, and the idea of them switching over, like
The Bears.
nobody wants to be. It's
Bears.
been we've been pretty good since the Heidi game with the actual broadcast. Now, individual establishments may Heidi game you, but
Yeah.
typically the broadcast crew does not. Even the guy at the place where I was watching it had to run around and reset all the TVs because they were automatically primed to switch at 1:00 to the NFL games.
Mhm.
And you could see him like switching it all because he didn't want to deal with all of a sudden at 1 every TV in the bar just flipped to an NFL game,
Right.
and we all the whole entire bar got Heidi gamed right when the winning goal went in. That said, like, I think that there are so many complaints about the penalty shootout, especially in finals. The idea of settling a final that way, to say, like, hey, we're going to do this. This is the parameters. We're going to go with the golden goal. Even if they had gone with the golden goal, though, this time around, it would have still been exciting. It would have been an Argentina win because they scored first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And well deserved. Well deserved.
You know, we've talked about the idea of a silver goal, which would have left us in the same situation because, you know, okay, they scored and France came back. So then what do? What I don't want to do is start, because there is a fatigue, there is a health factor that goes into what happens when you're playing that game at 130 minutes, 145 minutes. Like when you get up into that realm, when you're up around, you know, you're talking about 2.5 going on 3 hours of play. That's a lot.
Yeah.
And
But you're such a fanatic.
Only the goalkeeper's still going to be on the field by then, though. I could imagine that you probably have subbed out the majority. Maybe
yeah,
the
but
and you're like your last center back.
You know,
be hit by then.
You know those like heavyweight fights that just go on about 4 rounds too long.
Oh, I know that all too well.
And they're just like, oh,
yeah,
absolutely. That's and I also don't like. I get why the NFL does what they do in the regular season, and so does Major League Baseball, right? Extra inning rules in Major League Baseball, you put the runner on second. Overtime rules in hockey during the regular season, you're down to 4 players, right?
4 on 4.
3 on 3, right? Okay,
they remove players, yeah.
Yep.
What I don't like about that, though, is because I feel like it starts messing with the integrity of the game. You're not playing a soccer match anymore. What you're doing is playing some weird thing, right? And it's messing
You'd
with
cause them to run even more. There's less people on the field. They're going to be running more, so it's going to be even sloppier again. That would be add more. Add more people.
Yeah, so what you're doing is you're just effectively altering the way the game is played, right? That's great for a regular season match. If they wanted to do something like that in the group stage, rock on. Although I like the idea of it being played 90, you get 1 point, and then you get a bonus if you win the shootout, right? Fine, great, rock on. No more ties. There's always a guaranteed winner. It's just if you're going to go into the knockout stages or something like that, if you're going to go into the final, you have to have something that makes it look like the game was won, being a soccer game, not being some sort of farcical spectacle,
right?
That has degenerated it into some, I have no idea what we're watching anymore, version of something that's so far from the beautiful game that it's just a joke.
I mean, look, you got to remember that you got 120 plus minutes of beautiful game, you know, and I know it sucks that it can be solved then, but you know, to me, the emotions and the nervousness and the fear or the joy they feel when you win, especially when on penalties, is like, I don't know, to me it's a different emotion. I don't know, just I enjoy it. I have no problem with it, but like Sted said, I think Mike, you said it earlier, you know, Argentina, if it was golden goal, Argentina would have won, and they won on penalties. So I guess the world corrected itself somehow, some way.
Yeah, I just there was something that you're like, it didn't get, you said, and I was cringing for a second, but you fixed it up, Rob. It was like when you said it didn't get settled in 100-minute. What I'm most afraid of is that we're going to take a farcical ending that is penalties, which are a farcical ending to any tournament, and we're going to come up with something that's even more farcical. So here's what we're going to do in true FIFA fashion. Let's snatch defeat from the jaws of victory and turn this something even more ridiculous,
Yeah.
because the ridiculousness that we have going on right now isn't ridiculous enough. Let's make it more ridiculous.
Mhm.
So what I wanted, let's throw out the most ridiculous. So what they're going to do, instead of playing with their feet, now they're going to all play on their head. They're going to do
Yeah.
handstands and crab walk and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, how can we make it more ridiculous
Wheelbarrow.
than yeah. So what we're going to do instead of penalties is we're going to have it settled with a 3-legged race.
Yeah.
Burlap sacks.
Well, I get
rock,
I-
paper,
I-
scissors.
Yeah, I totally agree about. There's a reason why I was saying this is solely for a cup final, because yes, I understand that you would hate for a team to have to do all of that extra playing, knowing they have to play again in 3 days. So if they happen to win, but there's just got to be a better way than this. There's just got to be a better way than this. I would have been much happier with them just having golden goal, Messi scoring the winning goal, and that's it. Whistle blown. You guys had 30 minutes to figure it out. Next goal wins. 30 minutes. And it happened in the 25th minute or something like that, or 20.
Yeah, but what if Messi was not there and it drags on for another 15, 20,
I
30,
understand that,
40,
but it did.
55, you know,
Like I
it
just
still
think
happens.
like I don't know. I just don't like it. And it's also because from day one I was a huge fan of golden goal. I thought that was it. I was like, this is the solution that we need. We need golden goal.
Yeah.
And because, look, I sent that meme out to all of you, but it wasn't that far from the truth when you saw that Morocco and Croatia, if they happen to make the cup final, they're just going to sit down and wait for a shootout. It was. You've seen this happen so many times in these extra time games. Once they get to the second 15 minutes, they're basically playing long ball, seeing if they can get a quick counter and score. Other than that, they got 8 guys in the box, and it's just
that was
what's
the
the
thing that
point?
what I did enjoy about this game, though, was in extra time, you saw 2 teams that actually wanted to try.
Agreed. But I don't want to use the recency of this one game to counteract that fact that I feel like this has been a problem for the way these cup finals have been run since I've been able to even watch them, which was 94. So I just, and you know what? It's just one of those things that I just kind of got to live with, but I'll never have to like it, and I never will.
And it's okay. And it's okay, Sted. You have your feelings. We are validating your feelings.
That's all I ask. I'm a married man. That's all I ask.
You are allowed to have feelings.
I just want to be heard. I just want to be heard. Gee, when you get married, your feelings don't matter anymore. Trust me.
Group hug. We sent you all the love and blessings and positive energy, Stead.
Before I got on, I heard you guys were talking about like the summer and the winter thing with the Olympics. But you got to remember, Sochi, which is a resort town, a vacation town that the Russians go to in the summertime, and it gets very hot in the summer, but it's beautiful in the summer. And I've been hosted the Winter Olympics.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, they have the mountain where you got to go snowboarding or something in like August, but it's not a winter venue. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but they also had a lot of events 1,500 miles away, which you can't really do that in Qatar, as Rob.
No, you're totally correct. So, no, you know what? So I guess like,
they had a boatload of problems getting and maintaining anything that looked like Winter Olympic conditions. It was a very problematic.
Oh yeah,
no. That was a very problematic.
And weirdly enough, that's one of the reasons why that was chosen as a World Cup venue. It's a resort town. It's not. The fact that there's a football club in Sochi is rather amazing because no one lives there.
Yeah, no one lives in Adler at all whatsoever. But I will tell you. So being there and going in Qatar and experiencing the games, I will tell you, like, I sort of came around a little bit to potentially a World Cup around this time frame. I guess my only biggest issue is, and this is a big issue, and it's the leagues have to, if it's going to happen, FIFA has to play this with the leagues and the confederations to figure out a way to give these players a nice break. Because what I don't like is the fact that Sunday the league stopped playing, and then the next week the World Cup started, which is like atrocious. No, like typically what I liked about the Summer World Cup is that it typically started in mid-June. So all the leagues, for the most part, ended about third week of May. Champions League final was the last week in May, first weekend in June, and then pretty much you had a 2.5 week break, depending on where you are in the group, to start, to get your camp in, do maybe a warm-up match or two, maybe one locally and one closer to the site of the World Cup, and then you had players enough time to really recover. This didn't happen here, which is like, if you're gonna do this again in the winter, which sadly enough, Saudi Arabia is trying to bid for 2030. It can happen in these climates that are too hot in the summer, but it needs to be done with a lot of advance notice, and the leagues have to play nice. And we know that UEFA and something like FIFA don't get along, and it's a whole big problem. So yeah, and G, you had your hand raised, please.
Well, yeah, but if you look, Bundesliga, your Bundesliga doesn't start until for another month from now or something like that. Like they actually start weeks from now, where the EPL
like
actually starts on.
Yeah.
And so they did think about that. Where I think, don't quote me. I think France is January 1st. Spain is a little bit later. But the EPL is this week. Like they start right away.
Spain's starting the 29th. Spain isn't much better than the EPL. They're not.
And you're right.
You have a small window. I'm sorry.
France is starting pretty soon. Spain, the only country that's not, because Italy's also starting, I believe, during the middle of the week next week, is Germany is the only one that, because they have, but Rob, don't they always have this kind of winter break though?
Yeah, they always had a winter break, and they have the World Cup break, and they extended it for a couple of reasons. Number one, they could do it because they have 18 clubs in the league, right? That's number one. But number two, they really had a lot of English weeks, in the season, and they could actually start having English weeks at the beginning of the season as well. Not counting Champions League and not counting cup, like the German Cup as well. So, but like like I said, like my issue is the fact that like there's not enough break to start the World Cup, and also there's not enough break after the World Cup. So, all you EPL fans, and even Chelsea Mike in lower league, he's feeling it. Like, look, he was watching championship football. Like last week.
They've been on for the last 2 weeks. They've been on championship. And
but even EPL teams have been playing. I don't know if you've noticed, but even our Arsenal won through Italy. So these club teams are still playing. They're just not getting the media coverage right now. So they're still getting their miles under.
They're trying to keep their legs fresh, especially clubs that had teams that basically are like, okay, look, all of our guys are done. Basically, let's go ahead and get some reps in. Because
if you're PSG, what do you do? Like
exactly.
We have two guys here who are injured. PSG,
but also, Neymar's knocked out. He's a little hurt too. So you have two guys just finished that played 7 games in the World Cup, and an extended final, and then they have their other star players injured. But also, that's just their 2 star players. Don't forget, there's still like 4 or 5 other guys that were on the Argentinian and French team that all play at PSG. PSG was deep in this World Cup. And they also had PSG had guys that play for Morocco. PSG had guys that plays for Croatia. They are going to be worn out. PSG is going to lose to Marseille next game. Watch it.
Liverpool, I think, was in Dubai, correct?
So was Arsenal. Arsenal was in Dubai, and so was Juventus. They were in Dubai.
There you go. See, so all right. So that's the thing with the temperature. So I'm more okay with that. So there's a lot of lessons to be learned about this World Cup. And we can't forget everything that went into it. But I guess my thing is, if we want to talk about all the migrant deaths that happened, we want to talk about the white whales of LO stadiums that are being built. That's fine. I totally agree. But these same people need to also speak out in support of worker rights here in the States. Need to speak out for unions. Need to speak out, for employee benefits, maternity and paternity leave, all that jazz, right?
Yep.
So we want to talk about all that.
We are so far behind the rest of the world.
Exactly.
It's embarrassing how far behind we are.
So look, I will spew the crap and that Qatar has spilled and all the crap that they spewed and the propaganda. But at the same time, I will gladly look in the mirror and be like, look, did I do what I can do as a citizen of my country to fight for my fellow citizens to get proper rights in dangerous jobs and conditions? Because we're not too far removed from child labor. We're not too far removed from where unions have to fight for the 40-hour work
We're
week,
less than a
or,
century from now.
for pensions that are slowly dwindling,
And
so
a
all
lot of
that.
places in this country, those things are being rolled back as we speak.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
So there you go. Like, look, so we can build stadiums, and there are rules and regulations and stuff, but in our food manufacturing
Yeah.
and raw materials, we're
Right.
still behind here. And so we should do more to that.
Yeah.
That being said, the problem is that these stadiums are going to be built and no one's going to really occupy them. There's a couple of them that will be used, that they're slowly taking the seats out and making it smaller. But in essence, no one's going to go to Outbait. There's nothing there. No one's, Lucille is going to be, it's a beautiful stadium, but it had, like I said in a previous show,
Yes.
does not have, all the
Yes.
modern amenities that you want.
Please stay tuned for
Yeah.
Rob's recap of his time there. Rob, unfortunately, I've had to go back and re-edit because the images I used I didn't use Getty images. I thought of that. It was as soon as I downloaded the show. And I was kind of watching it and I went, oh wow, I think I made a huge mistake. So I have to go back. I have to rewatch and re-edit the entire show and put on Getty images, because Getty images are public domain of the stadiums. In fact, Getty images were better than the ones I was using. So I don't know what my problem was.
Yeah, no,
But I will get that edited. I will get that up. But I encourage you all to listen to that when that comes out. And actually, I encourage you to watch the YouTube. Rob gives a fantastic recap of his time there. It's very enjoyable. It's about an hour 15 minutes.
Rob
and I were planning to talk for like a half an hour. We talked for like an hour and 15. It was great.
Yeah, exactly. No, it was because I had to talk about every game.
It was great. Games. It was great.
I had fun in Qatar. But I think the thing to understand is I know that's not Qatar now. As of today, tournament's over. People are leaving. It's a totally different animal. And I understood that when I was in Russia in 2018. That is Disney-fied or FIFA land, as Roy Smith on New York Times called it, FIFA land, Russia, FIFA land, Doha, FIFA land, Qatar. What it is today, what it's going to be next week and next month, it will not be that. I guess the only thing you can hope for is that maybe Qatar has seen that if they open up things a little bit, that the world's not going to end and crumble, and their higher power, they're going to come down and damn them to death.
Right.
And so if they learn a couple lessons that help them move a little bit into modern times, great. But I don't foresee that, because it's not their way, and unfortunately, it is what it is, but I'm glad I went, because at least I got to see it. I got to tell people about it, experience it, because we all can talk about it from the sidelines is great, but sometimes you need to be immersed in it to actually see it for yourself and maybe learn a thing or two. And I hope that the world comes to the US and Mexico and Canada in 2026, sees us, because there are things that people talk about our country. There are certain European nations that have travel warnings for our country in certain cities. And so I totally understand that.
And as a Black American, I can say that we also have our own warnings for traveling in the United States.
Exactly, right? So totally understand. So I hope they come in, and then those of us, and I can't wait to be all y'all in the stadium in the World Cup, and we can enjoy it and go to different cities that we're not used to going to, and just see the different culture. And I hope they experience our culture and enjoy it. But also, I'm glad that they're going to be able to have a beer in the stadium as well.
Hopefully, some English fans will come over and get arrested. Come on, man! It's a rite of
Yeah.
passage.
Oh, yeah. Just chant Lizzie's in the box, and it'll happen. They'll fight.
So, all right, gentlemen. On that note, it was a great tournament. We're going to let some time pass before we get into where this rates in the pantheons of all-time World Cups. But I've thoroughly enjoyed the last 29 days.
Hey, Mike. Quick question. I have my memory's not so. How did Italy do?
I think free drinks for Italy Scotland games in the World Cup.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah. Well, that's coming. Yeah, we
Big shout
closed.
to Cam. Big
we
shout to
cl-
Cam.
Big shout to Cam. We hope he's doing well.
Mhm.
We closed the book on this World Cup. We closed the book on this year. You guys don't know it, but we'll be off until after the new year
Mhm.
because we need a break. We need to be able to celebrate the holidays with our families. So we'll take a nice break, even though we know that the league season gets started thick and fast.
Yeah, but at least the game's under our belt to have some, give us something to talk about too. Though.
Yeah, we'll get back.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of us have forgotten who were even on our teams. I'm like, wait a minute, who does he play for again?
I'm losing players left and right. I lost Lucas Hernandez. All right, I'm sad.
I've got to like go back and find my Man United jerseys because there's a game on Wednesday, and I'm like, yeah, I got to remember songs and stuff like that. I'm not ready for this transition. So, we want to wish. It was a great World Cup. We want to wish everybody a safe and happy festive period. You know, the English League and the Scottish League will abide by giving us all the football that we can handle over the next couple of weeks. But, gentlemen, it has been a great World Cup. It has been a great 2022 as we close the book on this one and we move forward to another year, calendar year of doing the Too Many Skies Soccer Show. You know, we had some great additions over the course of 2022, one of whom is sitting here with us tonight. Matt, thank you very much. Made his podcast debut in 2022 and has become a regular. Bert the Brazilian, who couldn't join us tonight, as well as Eves the bartender as well. Best wishes, of course, go out to Celtic Cam as he deals with some health issues. He hasn't been able to join us for a while. Again, sir, you are always in our thoughts and prayers. So as we close out, I want to thank all of you for joining us, not only for the World Cup for this year, the cast of thousands that make the Too Many Guys Soccer Show work each week. Those who were not with us tonight, Bert the Brazilian, Celtic Cam, of course, you're in our prayers. Larry the insurance guy, Chelsea Mike, Los, Eves the bartender, El Haji, Brazilian Peter, who none of whom were able to join us recently. Of Coach Matt.
With Coach Matt, congratulations. Coach Matt's got baby on number 2 on the way. So congratulations, Coach Matt.
British Will, who we have seen.
I tried to drag him on this week, man. I was like, "You back in Rockville? You got to come on, man." But
he's back in Rockville, and he hasn't even planned on seeing me yet. I'm mad at him. Of course, Coach G, thank you very much.
And London Sean. It's been a while. London Sean. Hopefully, you can understand the time change, and you know, you gave us a good stretch, but if you can squeak it out and try to pop back on, we'd love to have you back.
And Andy the Hammer.
And Andy the Hammer. Yep.
Yes. Coach Matt, or I'm sorry, Professor Matt, Coach G, Byron Rob, thank you very much. And of course, we could not do this without producer Stead. Thank you very much, sir. Gentlemen, it's been fun. Great year. Enjoy the holidays. Best wishes and to you and your families. I know I will be up. I'll be out in Delaware and then up in Philadelphia. Matt, we got to get together if we can. Maybe go out.
Around.
Yeah. I'm going to try and catch some of the Mummers Parade while I'm up there because nothing says New Year's like a bunch of drunk union pipe fitters dressing up in drag and playing Led Zeppelin on a string band.
I got nothing for that one, G.
Yeah, where's this happening? Where is this happening? Wow. I thought New Orleans was special.
No,
union pipe fitters in drag playing Led Zeppelin on
a string band.
String band. Okay.
Yeah.
Robbie, not
That-
far
that-
from Philly. You can make it up there, right?
Yeah, that's basically the Mummer in 0-degree weather. That's basically the best way that I can describe the Mummers Parade. And as Coach Matt shakes his head, I know I'm right in that assessment. Yeah,
Interesting.
there's nothing quite like it. So, gentlemen, it's been great. Thank you very much. We did all right this week. We'll try and do better next time.
Lahi.